Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we dig deep into the ice chest of 2016 to unearth the year's coolest cultural artifacts. Slice open a tauntaun with your lightsaber and cozy up inside its guts for warmth because you're about to experience a whole new level of cool.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Patrick Jebber.
That's right, Chad. On today's episode, we're sharing what we thought were some of the best things from 2016. From TV and tech to music and marketing, we'll talk about all the cool stuff that saved us from having a total meltdown in a year filled with a lot of uncool.
Yep, fair share of uncool. Also a lot of cool, though. So we're going to hit that up. We're going to focus on the positive, right, Patrick?
We always do. Well, we don't always do. We actually had a bout where we focused on uncool things for quite a while.
Yeah, our classic uncool list, because everybody likes looking back at the terrible things that happened throughout the year, right?
Yeah, we used to bring attention to the subhuman efforts of the year, for sure, right?
Yeah, in our negative days. But, you know.
We were trolls back then.
Yeah, back when we were trolls, we're much cooler now. Speaking of cool, we're recording this right after Christmas. How was your Christmas, Patrick? Did you have a good one? Did you get any cool stuff? Any cool tech? Cool things?
I think tech is always happening in my house. My kids, though, received VR headsets this year, and that was cool and something we've talked about in the past on Speaking Human. I think what I read was one of the most requested, most popular gifts of the holiday season, next to virtual assistants.
I could see that. I actually got my wife Echo Dot, Amazon's Alexa, just to kind of, I just wanted to see what it was like. I didn't go with the big one because I was scared to jump in, but I thought, I'd like to test this out and see how it works a little bit.
They're pretty cool, and they're priced right. And, they're always listening to you, so, you have no privacy now, so it's cool.
It's kind of interesting. It does some cool things. Alexa, Amazon's virtual assistant. One thing she's not very good at, just generally searching the web. Minor, major weakness, but... So I'd like to try out Google Home, too, someday.
Do you have that linked up to a wireless speaker?
I haven't done that yet, but I know you can do that. We just took it out and been playing with it, asking it stuff, seeing its capabilities.
I saw this news segment where they were talking about how prevalent they've become in people's households that, like they were talking about babies, their first words are Alexa or Echo.
Oh, that's hilarious. It's like part of the family now. That's how the tech's going to be integrated into our lives. Amazon's pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the big things of the year. Let's talk about the year as a whole. We kind of talked about it in terms of marketing. Let's talk about it in terms of just pop culture. Tech, movies, music, TV, cultural events. What'd you think about 2016 as a year in pop culture? Good one? How does it compare to other recent years? What do you think?
Pop culture, I feel like, had some wins and some losses this year. But by losses, the things I think that affected, I know we stay pretty positive, but I think, there was just an awful lot of pop culture icons that died this year.
Yeah.
I just listed a few, and this gives you an idea of how many people died this year. Muhammad Ali, John Glenn. In the music industry, David Bowie, George Michael. You got Alan Rickman, who was great villain in Die Hard, semi-villain in Harry Potter. Gary Shandling, Prince, Princess Leia.
I know, just happened, Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, very, very sad. So now that I've brought everyone down, we could talk about the
It
positive
did seem
things.
like a year. It did seem like a year where there was a lot. I guess more than usual of like those big and notable names like that. Prince was probably the biggest one for me anyway, who was like somebody you just didn't expect to go this year.
Yeah, so those were the uncool things, but in general, I thought that there were some cool stuff that happened this year, just like any other. So
yeah, it's always kind of a grab bag of good and bad. You look at some of the trends, so you see things like all these celebrity deaths. Another kind of negative one. I remember when we were talking about summer movies earlier in the year, how pretty weak the crop of summer movies was this year, though. It's not like there weren't good movies around. That's always the thing.
Mm-hmm. Movies in general, that's always one of those. Now, movie marketing, I think there's always really cool things that are happening in movie marketing. I feel like there's maybe like 1 to 3 really cool efforts in any given year for movie marketing, right? And we talk about those throughout the year, but
Yeah. And that's kind of why we do the cool list, is to call attention to some of the stuff, we thought was cool, maybe some stuff people don't know about, or to talk about some of the stuff that it's just fun to talk about. These things we remember from the year that kind of stick out to us. Do you remember when we did this last year, what your picks were, Patrick?
my list was pretty glorious, if I do say so myself.
I thought it was pretty good too, reviewing it,
I had Google. They created their parent company, Alphabet, the 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup winners, Raspberry Pi computers on mine, internet streaming, and VR, which we're talking about again this year.
Yeah, definitely. So VR, something that's still coming to fruition, not quite I don't know if this year was quite the giant leap people were expecting, but it was definitely a big step forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said at the beginning there, it's still gaining ground. I think that it's become something bigger than it was last year. But, if you just look at internet streaming and VR alone, you can clearly tell that I can see the future.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. If people didn't think that already, they should now.
On a small side note, before we get into your review from last year, the Raspberry Pi, which was on my list last year, is doing some pretty fantastic things in the world of computing this year. They released Pixel, which is their lightweight operating system that you can load onto old PCs and Macs. As one article from TechCrunch states, they're breathing new life into old computers, which is a really cool thing. You got that old machine just kind of sitting there and you can't do anything with it. And Raspberry Pi is basically giving you an option now for that. Instead of just throwing it away or recycling it, you could use it in your home for other things. So that's cool.
That's very cool. That's definitely an awesome innovation, an area that not a lot of people are focusing on. How do we take this old thing and make it continually usable? That's pretty smart.
So what was on your list last year?
My list from last year, pretty interesting. I had a soundbite from the trailer for the Point Break remake. I believe these criminals are extreme athletes with vast knowledge of international financial markets. I haven't heard it in a while, but when I looked back to see what it was, I was like, that rings a bell. Probably an unnecessary pick, but pretty funny.
Well, that pick actually led me to watch the movie this year. So I did see the movie since then.
Me pointing out that line in the trailer made you watch the movie.
Yeah, it was one of your cool picks. I was like, how can I not watch this movie now? I have to see it.
And I'm sure it was amazing, right?
Let's just say it could have made it into an uncool list, but we're not focusing on that.
We're going to stick with the positive, right?
Right.
Focusing on the positive is a great way to reference the negative.
You can always do a little twist to everything.
Yeah. Also on my list, I had the streaming surge, with HBO Go and HBO Now and Showtime and everybody getting their own apps and kind of taking more people away from cable. I thought that was a big one. Oscar Isaac, the actor who appeared in The Force Awakens and Ex Machina last year.
Oh, yeah.
He was a big discovery for me. He also plays a small role on my list this year. Self-driving cars, which was a big one, had another big year this year.
They're only going to get bigger.
Oh, yeah, that's just, in the coming years, some awesome things are going to happen with self-driving cars, including when they hit the market and the world becomes awesome. And then my last thing was summer entertainment duo of Mr. Robot and Mad Max Fury Road. Two of the entertainment standouts for me from last year.
Great picks. I still feel like they hold up pretty well.
It's notable and, nice walk down memory lane.
What I love about the cool episode is that it's very unconventional.
It's highly subjective, highly personal. What you think is cool, somebody else right next to you might not think is cool at all. These are all just the things that, made an impact for you a little bit this year. So, on that note, let's dive into the definitive 2016 Speaking Human Cool list.
Right now, Yolanda, we're not going to do anything stupid, are we?
Don't you hurt him.
Nobody's going to hurt anybody. We're all going to be like three little Fonzies here. And what's Fonzie like? Come on, Yolanda, what's Fonzie like?
Cool.
What?
Cool.
Correctamundo. And that's what we're going to be. We're going to be cool.
That was the very cool Samuel L. Jackson in what is perhaps his coolest role, reminding us all to be a little more Fonzie. So let's take Sam's advice and dive into some cool stuff. So Shad, how did you make your picks, and was it difficult? Did you feel like it was more difficult than years past, or?
I thought it was actually fairly easy. Any sort of list, any given day you make it, it could be different, right? Mm-hmm. Like you'd be like, my favorite movies of the year, and then you go back a week later, you'd be like, I wouldn't put that on there, but I put this on there. This stuff just kind of changes. It's very fluid. You nail it down at one point in time, but it's not like it's forever.
Yeah, and it's all dependent on your mood at the moment. We as human beings, we change, right, all the time. So like decade to decade, you can look at a movie at one point and go, that's my favorite movie of all time. And then you could look back at that and go, God, I don't know why I liked that movie. It was pretty bad.
What was wrong with me?
Yeah. I have a tendency.
Why did I like the Point Break remake?
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, I have a tendency to use this time preparing for the podcast for the cool episode as a way of catching up on the year. I don't know if you do that too, but sometimes when you're in the throw of things, I feel like you just miss or you maybe take for granted some of the cool things happening around you. It's life, we're wrapped up in our own little bubbles.
No, that's very true. I definitely do the same thing. You forget, you know what I mean? You forget some of the stuff. Going back to last January or February, what was happening, it's almost impossible to remember. You kind of need to do that little jog through what was happening in the world.
Yeah. So I enjoyed this episode for that very reason. It kind of gives me just this glimpse into the past that I sometimes need to help you move forward.
And like we said, it's personal, it's fun. It's definitely more subjective than what we normally do, which is still subjective but research-based, and we're looking at these things with that marketing mindset. This is more just cool, man. Straight up cool. So let's get into our picks then. My first pick is the Discover Westworld website. Have you seen this website, Patrick?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, that's a good one.
This is kind of my cool marketing effort of the year here. What's cool about it is, like the Jurassic World website from last year, it exists inside the world of the show, right? So the marketing isn't really selling you the show so much as selling you the come to Westworld, discover Westworld experience, like you're actually inside the show, and this is a real theme park. For anybody who knows anything about Westworld, kind of the premise is it's this potentially the future where they have a theme park that's like the Old West with all these robots, these lifelike robots in there, playing characters throughout the Old West. And there's storylines you can participate in. So this is a website that's basically selling people, come visit this park, experience this experience. And it's a pretty cool and immersive way to just take you into the world of the show, which is a unique world. And I thought it was reflective of what the show is, which is, it's a thinking person show. It's kind of like exploring and mystery and philosophy. So it gets you kind of just checking out all this stuff and gives a good deep dive for fans. Westworld is a show for people who like thinking about this and talking about this and kind of exploring these mysteries. It's a show for people who like to discuss shows online. I mean, it's kind of like made for that. Like Lost or some other shows before it kind of has that aspect to it. So I just thought this was a cool marketing effort that I enjoyed just kind of exploring and digging around in.
I love that. I love that it's trying to give the presence of this is a real thing. It's not make-believe. It's something that, you would go and experience, right?
Yeah, rather than sell you on watch the show, it's more like it's an extended part of the story.
Yeah. From a marketing standpoint in entertainment, to me, gets you deeper into the storyline, I think, that way.
Yeah, I like that approach a lot too. I feel like it's creative and it is like another part of the story where rather than marketing being this separate thing, it's just taking you on a new path that you can walk down.
That's a great pick. That leads in nicely to my first pick, which is I have to give it up for Netflix's sensation, Stranger Things. Brought a ton of nostalgia and fantastic storytelling to internet streaming. And the interesting thing about this pick is that it caught on quickly and people everywhere were really talking about this show. A lot of people in the same age group, but then also bled out into, the younger demographic, people who weren't necessarily alive in the 80s, who wouldn't have had a close attachment to the nostalgia aspect of it, but it had a great story, so people, took hold of that. And in an age of binge watching shows where you can watch all of the episodes right now, it wasn't like every week people were talking about it. It was, you've got to watch this show. I'm watching it on Netflix. But you could literally watch the whole season in a day if you wanted to. You know what I mean? The only hard part about it was just watching out for spoilers because some people had watched the entire thing before you.
Yeah, which is kind of the hard thing in general with our culture now is, with these bingey shows or these streaming shows that come out all at once, everybody's kind of not watching it at the same time like they used to do with scheduled TV.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be something you're going to see more of in the future, but very cool. That show itself is very cool, and if people haven't checked it out, they should.
Yeah, it's so cool, in fact. It made it on my list as well. It's my coolest TV show of the year. I think it's the year's best binge watch. The show I enjoyed watching the most, it was just a lot of fun. The kind of knock on the show, if there is one, has been that it's not its own thing. It's just made up of these pieces pulled from other things, mostly shows and movies from the 80s. But that's what I loved about it. I thought it was kind of like a unique mosaic of all these things I loved from the 80s, all these kind of horror and sci-fi movies. It was like a greatest hits package that they put together in such a loving way that it became its own thing. I mean, there is nothing else like this on right now. No one had heard of it, and all of a sudden, everybody was talking about it. And then, I watched it, and I felt like it was just made for me. I connected with it a lot. That was probably my favorite thing I saw on TV this year. A double cool list recipient? I don't know.
Yeah. So Stranger Things leads into my next pick, which is the year of sequels, reboots, and remakes. I'm going to start off by listing some of the TV shows and movies people might recognize, because there are more than what's on this list, but this gives you an idea of the enormity of it all. So we talked about Netflix, and Netflix had what I would call a reboot, maybe remake, maybe a sequel, I don't know. Gilmore Girls was reunited, which was a huge hit. Full House, or should I say Fuller House, was big on Netflix this year. Then you've got Hollywood, Ghostbusters with the all-female cast, Captain America Civil War, which is a sequel, Neighbors 2 sequel, Alice Through the Looking Glass with Johnny Depp, again, kind of a sequel, X-Men Apocalypse, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Conjuring 2, Now You See Me 2, Finding Dory, obviously a sequel to Finding Nemo, Independence Day Resurgence, The Legend of Tarzan, The Purge 2, Ice Age 100. It feels like there's been 100 of those movies, but it's actually only the 5th. Star Trek Beyond, Jason Bourne, Pete's Dragon, Ben-Hur remake, The Mechanic Resurrection sequel. Isn't that a long list? And I don't think I hit them
that's
all.
like the tip of the iceberg, I think. I'm surprised this is on your cool list, because I don't know if it's a cool thing. Some of these remakes that just, they found out, while some of them were successful, there's other ones where people are like, we don't really need this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even the Ghostbusters movie didn't quite perform as expected. Some of the TV efforts you saw, they're bringing things back and they're remaking things, and it's kind of gone to this extreme level, and it needs to be way dialed back. And I think we saw some rejection of that more so than we have in the past in 2016, which to me is the coolest thing, I guess, I saw about that. I just want to see more original content,
No, I don't know what you mean. I mean, I thought we all wanted to just regurgitate the same.
Yeah. I want the familiar. I want nothing new.
Yeah, I mean, as we get older, we're going to be like those little old men who sit around and go, I don't like these newfangled ideas.
Well, the problem is there's going to be nothing new for anybody to remake in 20 years. So we're going to be watching remakes of the remakes of the remakes.
Oh, yeah. There'll
in
be
Ice Age 24.
The 10th remake of Point Break. Here's what I liked about it. The original ideas, in a lot of cases, were great ideas, and they did very well, that they sparked these sequels and reboots and remakes. It wasn't necessarily these efforts that were cool. The original ideas were that good that somewhere down the line, people go, we should do a sequel of that because people love that concept, the movie, whatever it was. You know what I mean? And that says something about, if you've got a great idea and other people are imitating it, duplicating it in anything in life, you've done something pretty cool at that point, right?
And I can see it in that light. And I guess you even say in general with like a sequel, it's like people are so into this, they want more of it and they're getting it, and they're getting it now more than ever.
Yeah.
Which could be seen as a positive. It's just the results, what we're getting. And, I go to see Rogue One and I'm seeing trailer for another Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And I'm like, who wants another Pirates of the Caribbean movie? Give me the person. I'll scream in their face.
And that's very true, you know. I mean, the thing about it is any kind of copying, sometimes the original idea, nobody can ever duplicate that original idea. Nobody can, like we always talk about things that viral out, right? And how they're lightning in a bottle. You can't necessarily duplicate it. You could try. This is the same kind of concept. You know, sometimes they come close. Sometimes they're decent. Sometimes they're just total flops.
I'll give you that. Begrudgingly.
So what do you got next on your list? Since my last cool one didn't live up to your ideals of cool.
You didn't live up to my expectations, man.
Come on.
Well, I'll tell you what my next pick, Patrick, is in a minute when we drop some more cool picks on you. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's episode of Speaking Human is sponsored by none other than Monsters Unlimited. When you need some cool in your marketing, think monsters. Visit thinkmonsters.com for more information.
All right, Patrick. So jumping back in here, I'll get to my next pick, which is a surprising one for me. The cool and convenient forward-looking service of the year, which to me was Walmart Grocery Pickup. That's right, a rare compliment and shout out to Walmart. Not one of the, brands or stores I love at a particular level, but I love this service. And I think it's cool. Started using this about a month ago. You order your groceries online. You got an app, you check in, they know how far away you are, they know when you're there, they bring them out to your car, you go. I love it. It's so easy, it's amazing. They've put this together really well and streamlined the service. They've got an intuitive app. Ordering is easy. I mean, this is moving into the future of shopping. I think not just groceries, but everything might be like this sooner or later. In terms of physical locations, not online, but we're seeing, Amazon's coming with their no checkout grocery stores soon. This is a thing, and Walmart's kind of ahead of it a little bit. It's something I love, and I thought it was one of the coolest things that came out of 2016.
The technology that's on the back end, it's a really futuristic place that we're going, A fantastic advancement in the world of shopping in general.
Yeah, it's just one of these things, and even with this Walmart pickup, it's nothing groundbreaking, but think of grocery stores now and 30 years ago. Not a whole lot has changed, right? It's one of these things we talk about where you go, you get your groceries in a cart, you check out. I don't know that it's so different than it was 30 to 40 years ago, but now it's starting to be, right?
You're just making it super easy for people to go in there and not waste time.
Cool thing for me. I love it. I love things that make me lazier.
So lazy. My next pick is a very localized pick, Shad. This is something that is very cool specifically to our location, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers winning the NBA championship. Now, last year, I had a sports pick in my list, the Women's FIFA World Cup, which is odd because I'm not an enormous sports fanatic by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a great story, a city that has never won an NBA title and has gone 52 years without a major sports championship. On top of that, we've talked a little bit about LeBron and his branding in some articles on Speaking Human before. It's a great branding story and a comeback with LeBron James and his return to Cleveland. He solidified his place in basketball history, I think, by bringing the championship to Cleveland. So very cool, just overall, very cool story for the year, and one that everyone else in the world probably wouldn't feel as strongly about.
I think they would to some extent. The other thing about that was the series, the NBA Finals. You had this dominant team all year, this Goliath, versus LeBron and the Cavs, who are, the Cavaliers are known to not win. That's kind of their thing. That's the story. That's the narrative. Mm-hmm. And then so you have them get down 3-1 and then come back in these 3 games and win that series. I mean, it was just such drama and such fun. You know what I mean? It was so exciting. I just know I remember the emotional roller coaster of that series. And it's why people love sports. It's just one of those, there's the narrative attached to it that you have this, downtrodden city, this superstar who wanted to get it done for Cleveland. I mean, it just all came together in such a great way. It was really one of the stories of the year.
And when you put it that way, it makes it even cooler.
I'll tell you what, Patrick, it's so cool. It's also made my cool list in a way. I had it as a combo, right? I had it as both the Cavs win and the Chicago Cubs win in Game 7 of the World Series, which was the other great sports story of the year. I think this has just been a really good year in sports. For me, I'm more interested in sports for the stories, from that narrative perspective, like that get attached to the athletes and the teams and everything like that.
Yeah.
So here you had these two franchises who are kind of like known as longtime losers, with their suffering fans. There's this big narrative attached to it. They just can't get it done. And this was the year they got it done. And even the Cubs were going up against the Cleveland Indians, who are another team like that. So you had kind of underdog versus underdog in this series that goes to a Game 7, that goes into extra innings, that gets stopped for rain, just like bleeding drama. And for anybody who's a sports fan or even casual fans, because I think both these series pull people in, so much fun, so much intensity, so much drama, and just great, great stories.
And natural stories, right? Ones that unfold before you. They're non-scripted. Or some people might think they're scripted because they think it's all rigged. But it's not scripted. What kind of story is better than that?
Yeah, completely unpredictable. What's going to happen here? People are on the edge of their seats. And anytime you get a, deciding game like both these series came down to, it's the best. It's the best that sports has to offer. And it brings out all these personalities and different stories and just gets fans, and I would say the culture in general, just latched onto it. And I love a good underdog story. So to me, both these teams were pretty awesome this year.
Well, I'm glad we both see eye to eye. We had a double award winner twice.
Never before in the history of Speaking Human.
Yeah, and never again. So my next pick, Shad, I think everyone will agree with to some extent, no matter how you feel about those involved in this pick. I could have went many ways on how to explain why this is cool, but I'll just keep with the simple explanation, and that is the end of the presidential campaign.
I think there's a key word in there, right?
Yes, the end of the presidential campaign. I can't express this enough. I'm so glad this election cycle is over, and that's why I use it as one of my picks. It's so cool that it's come to a close. Some people might have used the fact that, there was coolness in the way that presidential campaigns marketed themselves and blah, blah, blah. No. Mine is just, it's over. Just like any election cycle, I feel like by the end, you're just tapped. You're done. And this one I feel like more so than the rest, it just felt like it went on forever. Sometimes it's good when things come to an end.
I like your spin on that. Those are the key words, the end. Let's close the book on this, because I don't think I know anybody, even people who are really into politics, who didn't feel by the end of this like they had been clubbed over the head repeatedly. Like when a cartoon would get hit by an oversized bat until they're like in a hole in the ground. Yeah. That's kind of the way I felt by the time we got to the beginning of November. It was just like, please, inject me with something to put me to sleep for the next month. I just you almost couldn't take it anymore. I mean, it was just negative in so many ways, not like these things always aren't, but even this one seemed more so, or more divisive, and it's something culturally I'm happy to put behind us.
I struggled, whether or not I would put something that would be political on my list. I'm not going in any direction here with my pick. It's just, it's nice for it to be over with. And that's why I think a lot of people would agree, no matter how you feel about it, that it's over. Because it's literally something that just emotionally drains you,
You know what I like about your cool list? It's like you turn it over and it's the uncool list. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like two sides of the coin. One side's cool, but you just like turn it and now it's uncool. It depends on the angle you're looking at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could, if you just looked right between any two words that I say in my cool list, you could see the uncool in everything that I say.
The next item on my list is the apocalypse.
You mean X-Men Apocalypse? No.
The actual apocalypse. So cool that we don't have to deal with electricity anymore. So the next one on my list is the Homecoming podcast from Gimlet Media. This is actually a pretty recent discovery for me, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. This was the coolest one I found this year. What this was essentially is this is a fictional drama podcast, right? They're telling a story in different parts. Gimlet Media kind of owns podcasting. They put together this really high quality podcast with a good story, real actors, Catherine Keener, Oscar Isaac from my list last year, David Schwimmer of Friends, and they have just this really good production where it's like listening to a movie almost. So they put together this podcast called Homecoming, which is this mysterious story of, I don't want to give anything away because it's all shrouded in mystery, but definitely worth a listen, really entertaining. Each segment, it's maybe like, I think there's 6 episodes. They're each like 15 minutes of story, and then there's like a little after show attached to each of them. Seeing the podcast medium move into this direction of now we have shows. Now we have dramatic stories. Like people are just pushing the medium forward. Another one worth mentioning that I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I started to was Life After, which is part of GE Podcast Theater. They sponsor these podcast stories now that are the same thing. They're like dramatic fiction, you know? So this one's the story of this guy who's like an FBI analyst and his wife dies, and he starts connecting with her through social media, or like these digital messages she left to him. And it's another thing wrapped in mystery with a sci-fi angle attached to it. But this is just cool. Yeah. Homecoming podcast. One of the coolest things I discovered this year. So something I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, now that you actually describe it, I have heard somebody talk about it. Maybe it was you or somebody in passing I've heard talk about these.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. I mean, one of the things, especially you'll find interesting, is the sound design is just kind of amazing. Like you always know, you know, you'll have characters in specific places or doing things, you know, and you can't see them. But through the sound, you get that across. You know, if they're walking somewhere, if they're outside, or if they're in a specific place, you have these familiar sounds. So the way they put that all together, it's pretty impressive.
Any podcast that takes podcasting to the next level is something I can get behind for sure.
We're a friend of podcasts here.
We're a friend. We're a very good friend. So my last cool pick of the year, Shad, do you have any idea what it is?
I would say it's probably earthquakes or tsunamis.
You'd be right. No, my last pick of the year, Shad, goes to wireless technology. Listening to music, and this could include headphones and speakers, wireless. Charging your devices, like phones, wireless. Home automation, appliances, doors, thermostats, smoke alarms, wireless. Fitness trackers, wireless. Printers, wireless. Drones, wireless. Wi-Fi for homes and businesses, wireless. Now, I get that all this isn't exactly new to 2016, Shad, and our listeners, so don't start beating me up online. But the advancements being made this year and beyond are what I personally have been waiting for. Just the wireless headphones and speaker technology alone is a breath of fresh air. I'm so done with wires, Shad. I'm so done. You know, I feel like we're just scratching the surface now.
You know, you're definitely seeing it come around with headphones and stuff, and the quality and everything, it's getting a lot better.
Yeah.
Side note, another kind of cool thing, something my wife got me for Christmas was a wireless beanie, a snow hat for when I shovel the driveway, with speakers in it.
Oh,
so that I
yeah.
don't have to wear headphones with a hat over top of them, which is cool.
Yeah, I've seen those. That's awesome. Do you love it?
Yeah,
Have you used it yet?
I haven't used it yet because now there hasn't been that much snow, you know, since the time I got it. But I'm looking forward to trying it out. I thought that was a cool, perfect Christmas present thing. You know, one of those things you'd never really buy, but it's kind of fun to have.
You're like, bring on the snow.
Well, I wanted snow so I could shovel. I can't wait to shovel. But yeah, you know, I'm looking, I don't know, for years, I even gave up on like my living room surround sound because I was sick of the wires. And I was like, you know, they got to the point where they got rid of some of the wires, but most of them, I think unless you're spending a butt ton of money, still require wires, you know, and to put them around. And I was like, just gave up on it. I'm like, why isn't there wireless? But I can't wait till, you know, the future where everything is wireless, or at least most things, you know, or you can hide your wires better. They don't have to, things can sit on your counter and don't need wires.
Yeah, I mean, our desk right now, if you look at the desk with computers, I mean, there's like wires everywhere. Even though there's more wireless things than we've ever had before, it's still a bunch of wires laying around, I can't wait till that's over with. But I would say this, I have to stop and just say probably I want to replace one of my cool list picks with what you just said, which is a butt ton of money, because I think that's probably the best description. A butt ton of money.
You don't use the, it must be the European measurement system of a butt ton.
Oh, is that? Yeah, that's metric. That's the metric system. We don't use that here in the U.S., but I love it. A butt ton of money.
That's the only word that popped in my head. I don't know why.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming
no
that's
more
not,
wires.
So I'm assuming that's butt ton of money is not on your list. That's a pretty great cool list then.
Pretty interesting, I gotta say.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's very unconventional. Our cool list is very subjective and all over the board, I think. Most people would agree, right?
Yeah, get you a wide variety of things, though we did have 2 overlaps, so, shared cool, I guess, this year.
When you have an overlap like that, it should probably elevate the coolness factor to like what's better than cool but less than awesome.
Whenever something is named for the second time, we have like some sort of audio thing that's like super cool.
Or we could just totally rip off like Mortal Kombat, like, get over here!
It was kind of like that.
Dun,
voice,
dun,
huh?
dun, dun,
Finish
dun, dun,
him!
dun. And then we'll play the Mortal Kombat theme song, and then we'll
Yeah.
get sued.
Well, that's not a bad idea, actually, if we just go super cool. Oh, God.
And on that note, Shad, let's jump into our top takeaways. Our cool episode top takeaways are a little more lighthearted. And I will leave everyone, our listeners, for the end of the year, end of 2016, beginning of 2017, with this top takeaway. If you really want your employees to be happy, you can basically just start internet streaming in your offices. Wirelessly stream shows like Stranger Things during their lunch. It will build stronger relationships between your employees and give them a sense of commonality where there may be none. Just don't let them binge watch Gilmore Girls or reruns of the presidential campaign. For the love of God, please don't. That could be detrimental to everyone's mental well-being. So that's my top takeaway. Stream things.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, and
right?
It's a good idea. Or even take any of these cool things and offer them up as a shared experience, right? Check this out. Let's talk about it. It's a good idea. I like it.
It's one of those things. It builds a community inside your business with your employees. It builds stronger relationships. Can't beat that.
Yeah, smart and practical idea. I like it. For my top takeaway, I want to take a minute to talk about cool. So what defined cool in 2016? And how can you bottle it up and rub it all over your body or business in 2017?
Oh, God, there's so many things I want to say right now, and I can't. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump into your top takeaway. That's
all right.
really rude of me.
It's all right. Thanks for destroying my top takeaway. Very serious.
Okay, go ahead. Yes? You were talking about rubbing it all over your body or something?
Yeah, that's where I was, right? So what defined cool in 2016? And how can you bottle it up and rub it all over your body or business in 2017? Who knows and who cares? Cool is not something you chase. It's something you discover. It's something found. Whether we're talking about teenagers or brands, cool emerges organically from confidence, authenticity, and passion. This year, I found it in the immersive marketing for a show about a robotic theme park. The nostalgic tale of strange things happening in the 1980s. 2 sports underdogs that managed to rewrite their long-standing narratives of failure. Where will I find cool in 2017? Beyond my basement freezer, I have no idea. And that's part of the fun. So keep your eyes open, keep your mind open, and be on the lookout for those goosebump moments. They're all around us. You just have to find them.
Would you classify your basement freezer as cold or cool? I'm just getting caught up in the semantics here.
Well, that's true. There is a fine line. I guess once you go so far into cool, you become cold. And nobody likes something cold.
Except for Mr. Freeze. You see how I can just
Chill.
interject Arnold into any conversation?
Yeah, it's amazing. Chill.
Chill.
That should have been my top takeaway.
It's the chilling
Chill.
sound of your doom.
Vincent.
Oh, twins. A little twins in there too, huh?
We need more twins in our lives.
That's what we should say when we have an overlap. Twinsies.
That's it. Or we need some sort of twins clip that plays.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the leftovers. So instead of one super kid, mom had two. Way to go, mom.
You remember far too much of that
I
dialogue.
was just thinking to myself, man, it's kind of amazing. I have the entire script memorized. Not amazing, like amazingly sad.
That's uncool.
If I was making my cool list of 1987, it'd probably be twins 5 times.
Twins. Well, everyone, that's it for today's cool episode. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. You can also find the podcast on Google Play. Your pick. I don't know why it's your pick. I just added that stupid line. I'm gonna have to edit it.
Like it. Your pick. Tweet us your thoughts on today's show or let us know your personal 2016 cool list at speaking_human on Twitter. That's at speaking_human on Twitter. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Stay cool, humans.
Speaking human.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane! Everybody strap in! I'm about to open some windows.